Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adoption Happy Hour brought to you by NAAP. We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, where it is our mission to unify the adoption community and elevate our diverse voices by promoting dialogue, understanding, and healing through education, awareness, and connections. I'm Marcy Keithley, the new founding advisor. Will be your host just for a few minutes, as this is kind of a little bittersweet for me as I step back from hosting 6 years of happy hours and turn this over to Patricia Knight Meyer and Greg Gentry. So I'm real excited to step into my new role and say goodbye, but sort of not say goodbye. I'll be around, and I know that I've placed uh, our signature program in great hands, and it can only evolve from here and continue to offer education in this safe space for all of you around the globe. It's just been such an honor. The happy hour story is so unique, and how we just accidentally stumbled into this, and here we are 6 years later. But it is time to say goodbye and pass the baton over. So I just wanted to share that with you, all of you this evening that are joining me, and thank you for your support. So at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Patricia, and she is going to kick it off from here.
Uh, I thought I was, hi everybody, and I'm really excited to be taking this responsibility on and stepping into some very big shoes with you, Marcy. I didn't
I
know
can
I was
do
going to
this
be
if you want.
reading the little opening here. I didn't have
You
it
can do it.
up. So
I can do
You
it
want me
one
to do
more
it?
time. I would be
you
Yeah.
want
happy
to
to do
do
it
it one
one
more
more time.
time? Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it my last time. Okay. So we want to welcome and remind everyone that this is a public meeting with no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. Portions of this event are recorded and may be shared in our private happy hour group on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. So you definitely, if you're not following us on the Adoption Happy Hour Facebook group, please do so, because that's where the replay, one of the places the replay will be listed. Please remain on mute, raise your hand or screen on the or your virtual hand to be recognized. You may post your questions or comments in chat. If you're experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thought, please contact a licensed professional or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988. What else we got, Jen?
Wonderful. Thank you. I think, Jen, you were going to talk a little bit about untangling our roots.
Yes. So I'm going to share this here. Beth got this great graphic for us. It's coming up March 19th to the 22nd in Atlanta. It is brought to you by NAAP, Right to Know, and DNA Angels. We have over 50 speakers, 3 jam-packed days, lots of entertainment, but it's very unique in that we're bringing these different communities together. I said there are still some early bird tickets. We will drop the link in to get it. And if you follow either NAAP, Right to Know, or Untangling Our Roots on social media, because we do have our own page because we travel the country doing events as Untangling Our Roots. You can get up to date and start to see, who all the speakers are, and the full schedule is out as well. So we would love to see you all there. And some of your favorite people who are in the Zoom room are going to be there presenting. So. And then also we want to talk about, if you've not been with us before, or if you might forget, the support programs that we have. Wait for the box to go away. Okay, so we only have happy hour twice a month. It's on the first and third Friday of the month from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Greg Gentry is going to be your first Friday host, and Patricia is the third Friday host. In addition to that, we have Putting Yourself Together After Reunion. You can actually be after reunion, or you can just be contemplating it and get some sage advice from Dr. Joyce McGuire Pavo. That is coming up on the 20th. That's Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can register for all these events on Eventbrite, and I'll drop the link in. The next program after that, we have Dr. Liz Bedetta. She has Migrating Towards Wholeness. That will be on the 23rd. That's a Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then our next happy hour with Greg will be on February 6th. That's a Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And First Families, the next First Families, which is hosted by Amy Seek, will be on February 12th. That's a Thursday at 6 p.m. So we would love it if you could join us at any or all of these programs. And with that, Patricia, I will turn it over to you to introduce your very first guest.
Thank you, Jen. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so excited for who our guest is tonight. Tonight, our guest is Beth Jaffe. She is an author and artist and changemaker from Montana. She reformed Montana's adoption law and wrote a powerful memoir to transform global conversations around unplanned pregnancy, abortion, and adoption. Guided by compassion and creativity, she's turning personal pain into universal purpose and offering a lifeline for those navigating shame, silence, and the long echoes of loss. Choiceless, a Silenced Birthmother Speaks, brings readers into the heart of conversation too often whispered, avoided, and spun into oversimplified slogans. Her book is available now on pre-order as a ebook PDF version on Amazon Kindle, and both the ebook and the paperback will release on Amazon on January the 30th. Beth is going to start us off with her presentation. I think we're going to be so lucky as to hear her read us an excerpt from her book. I might have a few questions for her. Then we're going to follow up with Q&A with everyone attending. And Beth is giving away a free copy of her book to folks. So I think Jen or Beth will be doing a randomizer to find who's going to be the lucky winner tonight of that book. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Beth.
All right. Thank you, Jen, or Patricia. I was just looking at Jen. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here, and I'm having kind of unexpected heart palpitations at the public speaking moment. It's funny how we've all become so used to Zoom, and yet still sometimes it gives us little surprises. So yeah, I want to thank you all for being here with the intent to bring the community together. And a united community is going to really rock the world better than the splintered version that we've seen sometimes over the years. The adoption community is one of the few communities that has really been at it for years and years and years and years and decades even, and not really hit the big time. And that's because our stories are so complex. What I've discovered along the way is we need and we want, but we can't get the easy slogan. People love their simple, easy slogans. And our job is to constantly try to dismantle those. And it leaves us in a little bit of a lurch. So I feel like what's beautiful about this group is that we are focusing on a happy hour. And we are focusing on our strengths and our united experience, and that is going to, really bring the change. I have a bumper sticker back home, or what I call home. It's my favorite place in the world, in the woods. And on the door it says, "Who says happy is only an hour?" And I was thinking this was just an hour, so I prepared a very short thing. So we'll have a little more extra time for more interaction. And if you guys want, we can dive into my creative strengths, which is to get people just out of their heads and into their fountain of creativity. That's really what I'm about. I feel like the fountain of youth is linked to a part of your brain that I call the Mojo Center, and that's where you get to be creative. And this thing has been locked down for a lot of us, especially due to various kinds of trauma. And for whatever reason, it pushed me, my trauma experience pushed me to dive more into my creative side. And also, what did that was my dyslexia and just being an odd duck from the get-go. I was not in the regular groups of students and stuff on the early days. And being an author is a miracle. So if you ever see a picture of me or hear my name, you know that miracles exist because I am one. I'll tell you a little bit about my book. I do have a few slides for us, and I'm going to read a little bit as well. It's nice to have an agenda. So that's the agenda. I had a near-death experience in 2020 with COVID. I am a birth mother. It says it in the name of my book, A Silenced Birthmother Speaks. And I think this is pretty common, this being silenced thing. And locking down that kind of essential who you really are to fit in. That was part of my dyslexia experience, to like always pretend to be a reader, to always try to pretend to be a good student when I really didn't feel like one. And that's what birth parents do a lot, is pretend to fit in like they didn't. And I think adoptees feel this as well, and adoptive parents. We all experience this sense of, we got this complex thing and we're trying to show up in a world that doesn't really appreciate it. And for me, it had me making myself small and invisible a lot. And it had me, hiding who I really was and what I was really experiencing on the regular. And I think that led to some pretty nasty personal habits. I was explaining earlier that I discovered that there's not enough whiskey in the world for me. And I do still enjoy some from time to time at a happy hour or something, but I had to have some other tools to enjoy life. And I had been meditating every day for a long time and walking in the wilderness and healing from my adoption trauma and all my stuff. And still, COVID came along. I was even super fit that year. I was hiking like 3 hours a day because we didn't have regular life through the pandemic. I was hiking and doing push-ups. I was doing 20 push-ups 5 times a day. So I was doing 100 push-ups a day. I was in really good shape, and I got COVID. And the next thing I know, I was out, down for the count, and I almost died from it. This near-death experience gave me a second chance because I had a bigger picture. I left this world for a period of time and I went into this other experience, outer body experience, which was close to death. And I realized death's no big deal. It's kind of fun. And yet what's happening is here on earth. And I still had some kids that I did get to raise, and I wanted to see them move on in their milestones and in their life. And I wanted to tell people and like come out of the closet. For example, one of the slogans that we all know, thanks to the gay community, is "Love is love." That's a fabulous slogan. Don't I have slogan envy? Yes, I have slogan envy. I wish OBC conversations and all these various ancillary conversations that we have when we're trying to educate the public about adoption issues, it's not so simple to just say love is love. But my near-death experience gave me this like, wow, I need to make more of my story. I need to do more. I need to come back from this. And I had what a lot of people call downloads, like spiritual intervention thoughts, right? And for me, it was like, you got to write a book. And that was crazy talk to me. I just couldn't even believe it. Because as a dyslexic, the idea of writing more than a couple of pages, like a newsletter article, that's like asking about 8 hours out of me sometimes to write one little thing. Wee little thing like that can last forever. And here I have something now. Walking Miracle. I've got a big line across this one because it just arrived in the mail a half hour ago, practically. It says not for resale. And this is what I'm going to be reading all weekend to find the little errors.
Beth,
Something,
can I interrupt you for just a minute and will you hold the book up so everybody can get a good look at it?
yeah, actually, I was going to put it up on the screen with
Okay,
the share
good.
because I don't like this little line across my face on this one. This like not for sale gray line that
And I think it bears mentioning that you made that mask that's on the cover that we're going to see as well, right? The
that's
artist.
correct. Yes. Yes. So I got to get this thing to go down. We don't need all this extra ancillary stuff on the screen. Here we go. Okay. That's my face and that's my mask. And that mask was made as part of my healing journey. I used to be a facilitator for a group called Living Art of Montana. And we did masks there. Our primary clientele were people facing death through cancer and chronic illness and other kinds of terrible things. And I really wanted us to go I'm going to stop the share because I want to tell you guys something real quick. The main thing that I struggled with this book was the cover after a while. Like all of a sudden we had to do this. I knew the mask had to be on the front and having, we had duct tape over the mask, over the mouth. And then we had just my hand and that was kind of creepy. And we had it all these different ways. And it's super scary to have my face on here because I had to come out of the closet, truly, as somebody who has experienced this incredible shameful thing. The birth mother experience is like pretty shameful. I was supported by a lot of people. You can't do these kinds of things alone. So again, I want to just celebrate community and finding people together. We'll go back to the share. Except first I want to show you inside the book, there's these fun little pages and pictures and they're gray or they're black and white. And so if you buy the print version, you can color in the book. Because see, I'm an artist and I love to color. And I use this image to help myself reform the Montana law. I'm an artist, but I'm an activist. So this is an important line to remember. You either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. Thank you, Brene Brown. Yay, Brene. She's amazing. It's been a lot for me to stop being a little salty at her because she didn't talk about anything adoption. And I was pretty mad about that because that's some serious shame and vulnerability and challenge. But there was probably political reasons behind that or something smart about whatever she chose. But anyway, I like to give everybody something really meaty to hang on to. That's one good one. So this adoption mandala is an art as activism thing, and I do have it in the book, but it doesn't really have much of an explanation. So that's what I want to give you tonight, just for a minute. See, here at the beginning of our journey, it's a lot of it's black with a little white, like a hole in my heart. Thank you, Lorraine Dusky, for the book and for inspiring that imagery for me to just notice. People think of adoption as this black and white simple thing. And for them, it's not all black, it's mostly white, right? If you're doing the metaphor of the colors and good guys versus the bad guys. Anyway, they think adoption's this win-win-win wonderful situation. And as we go through the book, again, we get further and further, we kind of peel back the veil of secrecy, the veil of what's really going on, and we start traveling through and going from a black and white situation to more complex truths. And I gave it a little compass rose behind it. And this imagery means a lot to me. You can see that it's broken up into kind of a medicine wheel. If you look at the one on the right without the compass rose, it's got a cross of line, and that's like a medicine wheel, but those are pretty standard across cultural, all through humanity. We have this idea of sort of having mandalas and maps, and for consciousness to sort of raise awareness, raise consciousness. And drawing mandalas is this big inner journey that we go on. And I liked this one because also this woman, Sheila Kitzinger, she was teaching a lot of people about how to have a better birth. And that I needed, because those stupid books on what to expect when you're expecting don't help a birth mother, not one bit. Birth mothers are not taking each breath going, yay, I'm going to be a mother. They're having trauma the whole way through birth. It's really hard to give birth, knowing that you're about to lose your child. And I needed somebody else to teach me other than what to expect when you're expecting. Sheila had some great tools. One of them was the mandala to use to focus and to help with the breathing. And this one that we have, it's got 4 sections to it. And I like to show this 4 sections as 4 different aspects of adoption. And these things aren't in the book. This is bonus material for showing up tonight. But the first section, you can say maybe the upper right, that is a very benevolent form of adoption. And that's family within families, because maybe somebody died at birth, or like the father died, and or there was, anyway, somebody within the family was doing the adoption. And then the next section would be somebody lost their parents, was a real actual factual orphan, and was adopted, or there was something, other terrible thing happened with the parents. They completely went off the rails, and they were just disasters, and the state had to step in, and foster care became a real deal. Adoption through foster care is an interesting comparison to the next one. Foster care adoption has this innate, baked into the cake awareness that there are birth parents involved, and that we want to help heal the family structure as best we can. And if we can't, at least we never pretend that there was no such thing as birth parents. Then the next sections, we like to pretend there's no such thing as birth parents, and that's domestic infant adoption. And that one was the one I fell into. And there's all kinds of misunderstandings and blatant lies about that one. When you're a birth parent, there's absolute misrepresentation, and and coercion that so many people just can't even admit to. It's really tough to be like, oh yeah, they pulled the wool over me. Nobody really wants to admit. And there's, as a lot of people know, in adoption land, we talk about something called the fog, and it's sort of a nice place in a way. There's kinds of denials, and it's a way to numb and help your consciousness deal with some of the trauma of the grief that happens. The final quadrant of adoption world is international adoption, and they've taken a child completely away from their race. And this, I think, is an area that we could also, I feel like I need to update this in a way for the DNA surprises, and there's other ways to grow this, but this started, many years ago, and I've been using this along the way to help people understand a little more about adoption. And as people in the adoption community, I want us to grab onto some of the low-hanging fruit that brings us to joy and healing. And we take our adoption stories and we take the wheel and we turn it so that, or we flip the script, we take charge, we're empowering ourselves. I'm going to stop the share for a moment here. The fun thing about having a mandala and coloring things in is that you're getting out of your head a little bit and you're getting into a somatic experience. Coloring and making art and other kinds of art practice, sculpture, or acting, dance. These kinds of things are really helpful for those of us who have some deep-seated trauma that's like stuck in our bodies. And for me, it's my natural language to want to color. I like the sound of coloring pencils. I love watercolor. I love doing it while there's music happening. And these things light me up and help me move along. Yeah, I just saw the chat, and I want to thank Jen for that comment, because like so many people in the world where they had to come out of the closet and say, you know what, I don't like women, I like men, and they're a man, or vice versa, or whatever. When you come out of the closet, there's a freeing to that, and so helping people come out of the closet is it's my jam. I love to help people be able to speak about their stories, and I like to give them different tools and ways to do it. And sometimes just coloring something can help you find the words if you get hung up on the words, or moving your body will help you think of words. I want to tell you that, let's go back to the share real quick. I'm glad I popped off so that I could see that comment there. Sheila Kitzinger showed us that this this diamond in the middle with these lines going up and crooked and down. She said this is actually a birth symbol across cultures across the globe. And I thought that was pretty cool, that's an innate birth symbol. And I took that and added these extra little dots on the corners for extra doodle opportunities and extra places to talk about healing. And
Beth,
I had,
can I interrupt you for just 1 second, Beth? Because you were talking about how you added these 4 little dots. And I've been looking at this the entire time. And it's interesting because I think art allows you to see things or interpret things personally, sort of like an ink blot, test.
Right.
And all along, I was wondering if you created it to represent the child in the center, and then the 2 sets of parents that we adoptees end up dealing with. Because it was fascinating to me, because the circle is in its own box and the parents are exterior on both sides.
Yeah.
And I see that as the full family, the relationship of the adoptee to the 2 sets of parents.
Yeah, I've had a lot of time looking at this thing over the years. I put this is the birth symbol, and the body is really the mom, and the pregnant belly, that circle, the womb, the infant inside, or the fetus inside. And as somebody who experienced the unplanned pregnancy and all those desperate people, just give me the baby, that felt like a really dangerous situation, and it was the crosshairs. I felt like I was the target, the baby was the target.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I see the target too. It could look like a target, like a site.
Right. And there was 3 lines there, and I was like, birth parents, adoptee, adoptive parents. And then when I was coloring them in, one of them disappeared. And that's an interesting kind of analogy type experience there. Okay, I think I've gotten through most of what I wanted to say about the adoption mandala, and I do feel like that's just kind of fun bonus material to see where I'm at. I'm going all over the place all the time. And my book is a reflection of an incredibly creative, unusual person. People tell me this. Early versions of the book, they're like, this stream of consciousness is insane. Nobody's ever going to read your book. So you know that you're in for a bit of a wild ride with it, but it has been dialed down and polished, and we've uncovered the nice story arc that I have, even with all that crazy bouncing around. And isn't that something we all sort of understand as, you know, when we go to these gatherings like Untangling Our Roots? I haven't been yet, but I can't wait. I used to go to the AAC, and I've been plenty to the CUB, Concerned United Birth Parents. I just love to plug them. In fact, I'm a facilitator for the writing group for First Families, First Parents. But I've never really been very good at following these adoption stories. They go from left to right to up to down to backwards and around, like who gave birth to who and what and who was related to who. They're pretty tricky stories to follow. And I thought that was an important bit to sort of share, to express. And I didn't really try to hide that. So, because that's life, right? Super messy. I'm going to just jump in and read from this for you guys right now. And there's a little bit that comes before this, but this happens to be, so this is chapter 2, and it's actually called Welcome. Dear reader, have you ever written a letter or an email you didn't intend to share with anyone ever, and then one day found yourself wondering why its secret was so dang sacred? I did. And then things got interesting because I didn't have the patience to just sit around wondering. I needed to find out. Whether you're listening to me read this or you're looking at a printed or digital version of this book, I hope you have a charged sense of curiosity. Please don't tame that with a protective shield of cynicism. Too many wear those these days. I want you to know dyslexia is a defining element in my life. I've also found dyslexia is a problematic and annoying term that's often misused and misunderstood. I don't know what most readers think or feel when they endeavor to engage with a book. I'm quite certain most readers don't know what it's like for me to face reading a book, let alone write one. I plan to show you as we proceed. However, I may often appear off course from that intention. Since the early 2000s, I've had 12 daily calendars, each with 313 inspirational quotes within their pages. Only 313, not 365, because there's just one for the weekends. I rip off the part with the fancy words and put it in a box. Sometimes I pull these out and glue various ones onto a collage or stick one in a prominent place that I'll walk by regularly and thus increase my chances of following the advice it enshrines. One such quote crawled out of the box in late October 2021, and it's why I blame Ernest Hemingway for this project. Though I haven't read much, I have indeed heard of Ernest Hemingway. I valiantly failed at reading more than just some of his quotes and a few chapters from Valerie Hemingway's super interesting memoir, in which Ernest played a starring role. And yet, I know that before I was born, he died not far from a restaurant where I worked after I completed college. I tend to connect with ghosts, so I believe his ghost accepts some responsibility for this project. Maybe his ghost was the one that inspired me to ask, What would happen if I took the time to not just write, but also publish the thoughts I've kept too secret to write in letters I've never sent? Hemingway's commanding words absolutely buttressed my resolve to find out. Go all the way with it. Do not back off. For once, go all the goddamn way with what matters. Ernest Hemingway. I've needed buttressing because birth mother is another problematic term, and yet it's the primary theme I'm wrestling from here on out. Mothers give birth and raise their children. Birth mothers are part of the adoption complex. Their primary role is to give birth and disappear. Adoptive mothers step in to raise the children. Birth mothers don't. Birth mothers are not secrets, nor are their children, but many people want life to work like that. In addition to Ernest Hemingway's quote, my birth mother and birth father friends exhorted me to write and publish our side of the adoption story. I consider my story common and even tame compared to so many other adoption stories. And so I did want to write something more than just my own. But self-respecting authors apparently don't write about other people's stories and memoirs. Self-respecting editors who know a thing or two about publishing maintain that in the memoir genre, we're to write a singular personal story. Well, we all do our best. So maybe this isn't a memoir, and maybe it's close enough. My life's path has me living way out on the edge of humanity, where I do not relate to large populations of people or their roles and rules. I'm prone to generalize, exaggerate, rant, and slip into crass juvenile terms to help me express myself, my needs, and the needs of so many birth parents I've met. My writing style and personal opinions may offend your sensibilities, but please stay the course and hear me out anyway. If you're a self-respecting reader, you won't give up on me. I want you to know that as a mother of sons, I'm writing this for all of them, even though it is directed and focused on my firstborn. As the wife of a man married to a birth mother, I'm writing this for him and other men like him. They have a tough job being modern men holding the hands of women frozen in painful patterns. For me, my sons, my husband, and for comic relief, I occasionally and intentionally allow my inner immature boy to speak with attitudes and words I've heard from boys and men throughout my life. Times have changed, but have people really changed with the times? Some of us will always like to giggle at farts and turd emojis and cooties. My youngest son tells me cooties was never worth saying or playing. But I maintain my position that we were all forced to play a high-stakes game of cooties during the pandemic. When I was with COVID, I was very triggered by old memories of the dreaded cooties game. In my head, I kept hearing cheese touch over and over. Cheese touch was an alternate form of cooties in a book my boys and I failed to finish reading together. The book was so popular, they made it into a movie we didn't see. I think cooties is more relatable for more people. My inner boy agrees. Speaking of movies, a birth mother I know often gets calls from people making high-quality production shows with the adoption theme. She provides professional consultations to elevate the realism factor and honor the truth of the adoption experience. She once told me in her endearing Southern accent, "Oh, honey, people aren't ready for you."
That was wonderful. Thank
That's
you.
You're welcome.
Beth, I wanted to talk a little bit about your writing process and how you structured your memoir. In your book, you wrote, "As a creative person, I assume you can follow that we're now in a fairy tale together. You are in the process of becoming my son." For folks who don't know, you structure your memoir mainly as a series of letters to your son, and they come off very raw. It almost feels like I'm reading a private diaries I really shouldn't be reading. it's unbelievable to me how you're able to do this with so brave and so beautifully. Uh, on your near-death experience, I also want to read just a few things to folks that you wrote that just struck me. Fear gathered momentum like thunder in August carrying hail. I was hoping I wouldn't have to cash out and claim regular angel status rather than my current earth angel role. And then you wrote, until I almost died and saw a new vision for my life, I believed in the marrow of my bones that death would have been better than living with my choice to not be your mother. I mean, that's just beautiful writing. And I'm assuming that had something to do with your near-death experience that brought you to this place where you were going to write this series of letters to your son. And having read your book, I remember hearing a little bit about how those letters had once been written as private letters, and then you picked that back up. And if you'll tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, okay. So my son, the one I relinquished, I didn't have, it was supposed to be an open adoption, but it was closed, and I didn't have his real name. I didn't have an address. I didn't have any way to keep in touch with him. One day, kind of out of the blue, somebody reached out to me and was like, I found your son. And this person didn't have permission to go doing that, but that's the way it went down. And I was sort of shocked, like, oh, Facebook isn't stupid. I was okay. I actually had just quite the experience of like, well, now I'm going to write to him. I can write to him. There's this message thing that we can do in the Facebook. Well, that seemed actually pretty dumb. I didn't really know much about Facebook, but I could see I didn't want to write big long letters into a message center on the social media. And my husband and I, mostly my husband, but I've helped him develop the software company, and I've been making websites since before front page. In the 90s we were making these crazy websites, and so I had a few ideas on some tech ideas. I thought, well, what I could do is I could make something password protected, and just he could log in. I could send him his username and his password, and then he could log in, and I could write letters, and they would be on a website, and he could read them. And he could email me, and we could communicate that way. Well, he never gave me his email address, and I don't know if he ever read those letters. He never responded. He did respond to my first message on Facebook, and it was really sweet, and I'm not going to start crying. I'm not going to talk about it. But it was really powerful and beautiful, and I'm so grateful for the communications we have had over the years. But that definitely inspired me. I actually had entrepreneurial dreams of like helping people with Reunion create little websites and give them questions that then they can answer and do little video clips and stuff like this. I've thought of these ideas along the way. So it was natural. Plus, I took a bunch of classes all about how to write. And Anne Lamott, who's pretty genius, she said, she always calls it the shitty draft. Write a terrible, shitty draft and don't stop yourself. Just write it. And if you have to, write letters. So that's what I did. Just listen to Anne Lamott. It's her fault too, I guess.
And speaking about writing craft, and Anne Lamott, who is fantastic, she's amazing. You also wrote in your book a little bit about your writing process and how you had these different documents, and that one document was titled Here and Now, and another document was titled Manuscript, and then another one was Not Now. And how did you use those in your writing process? What did they serve? What purpose did they serve for you?
Well, a lot of stuff's running around in my head, so I'm just letting it roll out to type, right? And you're going along typing, all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to go down this road any further. This is a terrible rabbit hole. But something's here. I want to maybe revisit this. So I I paste and cut, and I put that in not now. And that's not for right now because that's distracting me. Maybe I'll be typing along, all of a sudden I'll be noticing my emotions just be too much for me. It'll be causing me trouble. I'll cut and paste that into not now. And the manuscript was kind of like, that's it. Because the here and now, I'm from old school computers where you could lose your entire life uh, because you didn't hit save. Something goofy would go down. So I had a bit of a paranoia, and so I never wanted to have the entire manuscript on something that I was working on the regular. Plus, it just takes too long to load, and I don't know. I just had that's over there. And plus, I would go back and read and read and reread and start telling myself I was a terrible writer. And I would have all these distracting things. So, just here and now, a nice little chunk, like Anne Lamott said, just write a little bit every day. So I started with this. Like I went to a workshop and I was like, I just have to write this much today. And I have that right here. I just have to write a little bit. And that's in the here and now. I just focus on the here and the now when I'm writing and not worry about the fact that I'm trying to write an entire book. That's crazy.
That's eating the elephant one bite at a time. And in your book, you talk about, I love your Bethisms. You've got a bunch of them. I'm not going to ruin it by mentioning them now, except for one, which is Carnation the Timer. One, can we see Carnation the Timer?
Yeah.
Two, how did the timer get its name? And how did you use it? And how did it serve you in your writing process?
Her mouth is
Adorable.
So I didn't want to use my phone because I would start doing other things on my phone. I just wanted the timer to go off, and I had read all this stuff about the Pomodorian method and setting a timer and just write for that much time, and then you can take a break. And it's how you do unsavory things. Like if you got to do a bunch of paperwork, you just set the timer. And when the timer's over, then you can go for a walk and do something else. So the timer was a big part of getting started. And my first draft, I would stare at the timer a lot more. And I was like, I didn't like this. I don't know. I bought it in the grocery store and there was something on it that was bugging me. So I put a little sticker on it and I was like, well, now it needs some googly eyes. I'm just creative. So I'm always making things. And then I was like, actually, in the first draft, Carnation the Timer plays a much larger role. There's a lot of dialogue with Carnation. We took all that. It's cutting room floor business now.
That's wonderful. Well, we've got about 5 more minutes, I think, before we open it up for Q&A. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't gone over yet?
Yeah, I'm going to share my last screen here, my last 2 ones. I want everybody, the other quote I love is from Kurt Vonnegut, who I got to see talk when I was in college. And this is his quote: "Be soft. Do not let the world make you hard. Do not let pain make you hate. Do not let the bitterness steal your sweetness. Take pride that even though the rest of the world may disagree, you still believe it to be a beautiful place." And don't forget to pre-order my book, Choiceless, A Silenced Birthmother Speaks, The Long Echo of Adoption, because pre-orders help take it out of, they help it get into an algorithm where Amazon takes me more seriously. And the algorithms matter. People will get more eyes on it. And I put it in the category of child family law because really the main reason I wrote this, it's important if you're going to do anything big and way the heck out of your comfort zone to have a couple of solid whys. And my first why was because I didn't want to die again with this thing locked up inside me. I knew I had a book. I knew I had a song. I knew I had something that was kind of caged, like what Maya Angelou says in The Caged Bird. That was really calling to me. I needed to do it that way. Two, I wanted my sons to know more because they grew up with a mom who would cry pretty regularly around the holidays and birthdays and, end of January when my son's birthday was. I'm just sort of a wreck. And they have the right to understand that in writing. I felt like it would be good for them to know that. The other why is because I really want I want us to get out of just the adoption community. I want this to go bigger and be bigger because I want the world to stop traumatizing infants and their mothers by separating them through these dark ages oriented policies that they have, allowing people to come into the birthing rooms and take the babies. I'm done with that and I don't want that anymore. And I feel like the babies have the right to know who they are and where they came from unquestionably at all times throughout their life. That should never be, their medical history should never be a government secret. The identity, nobody's discomfort and uncomfortable conversations should get in the way of that,
I think I asked you if you were going to get a copy of your book to the folks in Montana, where you changed the laws there. And if you're going to make sure that all the legislators there get their copy.
Well, it's when I go back to try to update the law because it was a messy process. It was just me. It's a ridiculous story. I didn't make the whole book about it because it's a thing to change the law. And if you're just doing it by yourself, nobody believes you when you're talking about the things you did and how it went down and why the language ended up the way it is. It's not a perfect thing. I would love to change it and I probably will. I've just been catching my breath and helping my kids. I mean, I had 3 raised sons. 3 sons is, even with a husband, that's crazy. They're bouncing off the walls. There's a lot going on. And I didn't have time to be driving over to Helena all the time and making all those calls and writing all the things.
Right.
So I could now, and I will. I'll change it again.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. We did have a question. Is the softback on pre-order right now? Or
no, there's some mystery. So I'm an indie writer. I'm an indie author. The publisher I'm working with is Precocity Press. They're amazing. I love them very much. But it's very limited to just this KDP Amazon process. And so the pre-orders are only for the Kindle. And when those drop on January 30th, then you can order the paperback at that time on January 30th.
And an audiobook is in the future. You had affirmed for me earlier. So
yeah.
Down the road a little bit, but it's coming.
Yes, I haven't started. My publisher, my little folks helping me, they're like, don't think about that yet. You've got other big important things to be doing right now. I'm like, well, but I'm a dyslexic. There's a lot of people I know who don't like to read. They want to hear me read it to them. My friends who've had cancer and chemo treatments, the chemo's kind of wrecked their reading capacities. So they need to have my voice, not just any old voice, not just a robot reading it.
Yeah. I love, I mean, I love to read, but I especially love an audiobook where when the writer is the memoirs themselves. It's just you can't get better than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
think
yeah.
no, go ahead. What were we gonna say?
I was just gonna say I did have a little bit of acting in my youth, and so my me reading is going to be a little more entertaining in some ways than the way some people who write, their words are so much more alive and rich than when they read them because they're kind of hung up and shy, and they're not naturally, they weren't trained to be bringing the words to life as though it was,
Mhm.
on stage or something. And so I do like to listen to some authors, but sometimes I like a real live voice actor reading something because it is
Yeah.
a little more pop to it in interesting ways.
Yeah. Well, it's 7 o'clock. I think it's time for us to open up questions. Anyone who's in attendance that has a question for Beth is encouraged to